Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard Tactics video, and today guys we're going to be asking and answering one simple question. What should you be buying in preparation for the new Imperial Guard Codex that's coming this winter? Now this is not the first time that I've recorded a video like this. In fact, pretty much every time a new codex has come around I've done one of these sort of videos to get people who are interested into the Guard ready to know what to buy when the codex drops. But this time it's going to be a little bit different, because on previous codex releases we've not had a whole new model range on the horizon. And this time it looks like we will be getting quite a few kits. So it's a little bit more complicated this time. And so what I've done is I've taken the time to have a little think and to consider all the angles. And then we're going to be able to answer this question. And hopefully by the end of this video, you should have an idea of what you want to buy, what you should buy, and what maybe you should hold off on. So one of the biggest things that should determine whether you think you should be getting a new model or not should be, is it even going to be in the new codex? There's very little reason in buying a model if it's not going to have rules going forward. I mean, you might be able to proxy it, but in a competitive setting, that ain't going to fly. And so one of the things GW's been doing with a lot of new codexes is they've been saying, if we don't make a model for it, it ain't going to have no data sheet, it ain't going to have no rules. So that's one thing you definitely want to be keeping in mind when it comes to buying models. Does it currently have a data sheet? Do they currently make a model for it? Right, as long as it answers both of those questions, you should be good to go and buy it. However, I would say if it currently has a data sheet but doesn't have a model, then it's probably not something you want to be picking up. So that is one of the general principles you're going to want to keep in the back of your mind when it comes to deciding what models you want to buy. Don't worry, I will be going through specific units that I think would be a good idea to pick up before the new codex drops. But another general principle I want to talk about is, what are the staple units that have always been in the Guard Codex? What are the units that the Codex quite simply couldn't function without? And that's a fairly simple one to answer: infantry and main battle tanks. Now, other artillery pieces have come and gone, other vehicles have come and gone, some of the specialist units have come and gone. But I'll tell you what has always been around for the Guard, no matter what its guise may be, whether it's a veteran, a conscript or an infantryman, it has just been the good old-fashioned infantry model. Now, here's a bit of an interesting one. We know that there are some new Guardsman Kits coming. We know that one of those Guardsman Kits is likely new shock troops. So whilst I can say this is a kit you could definitely pick up, I would say it's up to you whether you want to decide if you want the new kit or the old kit. However, I know some people are going to say, well, why would I ever want to pick up the old kit? It's going to look out of place next to the new kit. I tell you what, in my experience, Guardsman kits from all across the ages, when they're painted up in a nice cohesive colour scheme, look really, really good together. I have got many different kinds of Guardsmen in my Mordian 50th rifles. I've got old metal unique models like the Last Chancers, I've got metal Mordians, I've got metal Cadians, I've got new, in inverted commas, Cadians, I've got Krieg, I've got all sorts of gas mask boys, I've got unique models from open days and all sorts of stuff. You know what? When you tie it all together in a nice cohesive colour scheme and you put a little bit of F into it, you can't really tell the difference. It just looks like a big block of infantry, and it just looks like a lot of nice model variety. So if you're thinking about holding off on getting Guardsmen because you think, well, the new kit's coming around the corner, but you really, really want to get into some Guards, you really want to start picking your models up, I would tell you, don't worry too much about, oh, I've got new Cajuns coming out. Just pick them up. I guarantee you they'll probably be fitting in alongside the new models. However, if you're really not sure about that and you're like, you know what, Mordian Glory, I know you say they'll fit alongside each other, but we just don't know that yet. I really don't want to buy some Cadians if they're not going to fit alongside each other. Then what I would say to you is, well, you've got other regiments out there. What about the Krieg? They've got a recent plastic kit that's certainly going to be sticking around for a long time. So if you're not sure what regiment you want to pick up, you're not sure what models you want to pick up, you can't go wrong with those new Krieg models. They look really, really good as well, and they're quite modern as well. There's also the old venerable Katajan model kit. They might be still around when the new Codex drops. I have heard that there will be a whole new Katajan range refresh, so they might be going down the same route as the Cadians. But it's up to you. Basically, my point is, whether you're buying new from GW or you're not, you might be going down a third-party route, Wargames Atlantic or something like that. What I can tell you is that infantry is going to be around. That's the one thing you want to take away from this segment of the video. Infantry is still going to be around. Guardsmen with lance guns is always going to be a thing. So if you want to pick some models up, you want to start your Guard army, and you don't want to wait around for the new Codex. If you're like me, you're impatient, you want your toys now, then definitely think about picking some infantry up. You can't go wrong with it. Another thing that the Guard is always going to have is their officers. We're always going to have our characters, no matter what it might be, no matter what the command squad might look like, no matter what the loadouts might be, you're always going to have your characters. And so what I would say, if you're not sure what you want to pick up, but you definitely want to get started in your Guard army, you can't go wrong with picking up a command squad. The command squad for both the Cadians and the Katachans right now is actually a relatively new kit in comparison to some of the other ones that the Guard has access to. I do believe they will be releasing a new command squad kit though, so be aware of that, guys. But even right now, as I said, The old command squad models will fit in just fine alongside the new command squad models, so don't worry too much about it. If you want to get yourself some infantry, but you don't want the line infantry, you want something a bit different, then definitely the command squad box is one that you can pick up. You're always going to need officers, you're always going to need special weapons, and you're always going to need cool flags, medics, war gear, and all that kind of good stuff. Now, another unit that is an absolute staple of the Imperial Guard is the Leman Russ battle tank. Now, we do know that the Guard is getting a new tank on the horizon. It's called either the Rogel Dawn or the Praetorian tank. We're not sure quite yet, but we do know we are getting a new tank. Now, there is always the risk that GW will make the new tank better than the old tank to try and push model sales. That's just something that might happen. But let me tell you guys, if you're thinking about getting into this long term and you want a tank right now, you can't go wrong with the Venable Leman Russ. We've had that tank around for 20 plus years. It's just a really solid model, and the current kit is actually a pleasure to build. It's a relatively new kit. It's not one that GW is going to be getting rid of anytime soon, and we have seen Leman Russes and stuff in some of the leaked promotional material that GW has been putting out. So as far as I'm concerned, whilst there is a risk that the Leman Russ will be maybe purposely made not as good as the Rogel Dawn, I don't think that's going to be the case. From what I understand, the Rogel Dawn is going to have a little bit of a different battlefield role to the Leman Russ, and more than likely both tanks will be fitting in alongside each other just fine. So if you want my advice on the 3 kits that I could safely say you could pick up, I definitely say go for your infantry, whatever guys it may be, go for your officers, whatever that may be, and go for the Leman Russ battle tank. It's a solid tank. On top of this, if we're on the topic of tanks, I really don't think you can go wrong with picking up a Chimera as well. It is the beloved transport of the Imperial Guard. It is just a staple unit. You can't leave home. You don't have a Guard army, even if it's just in your collection, without a Chimera. I actually think that even though the Chimera kit and the Chimera rules are actually older than the Taurox ones in terms of when the models first came out, I think the Taurox is actually more likely to hit the chopping block than the Chimera, just because no one ever buys the original Taurox. People always go for the Chimera, and even if the Taurox was actually better rules wise, I still think people would pick up the Chimera simply because it looks better. The Taurox is not a well liked model. So for me, if you're wanting another unit that you want to pick up that you know is going to be alright, you know is going to be able to do stuff, you might as well go for that Chimera. It's a solid choice, and again, unlike the infantry and the officers, I don't think it's one that is likely to get a replacement kit, which means that you can buy it now and you're not going to feel weird about having it later when some new shiny models come out for it. Now, there are a couple of kits that, even though we know are going to be sticking around because we've seen that they've got new models coming out, that I think I would personally have a little bit of a sit and wait attitude towards, are the new Sentinels and the new Commissars. Because you could pick up the Commissar kits right now, you could pick up the Sentinel kits right now, but the thing is, we've seen the new Sentinel model and it is vastly different to the current one. And that makes me a little bit wary. If something's just an update, like you've got Veteran Guardsman versus Guardsman, or you've got heavy weapon teams that might have a little bit of a different loadout, that doesn't worry me so much. You know, officers are always going to be officers kind of things. But the problem with the new Sentinel model is that it's so wildly different in terms of style and aesthetic and everything, and the fact that it's got a big butt plug up its ass, that I just don't know what the weapon loadouts it's going to have. It may have all of them. It may have multi-laser through to las cannon through to everything else. We don't know. Or it may be that it's missing some options. Maybe it can no longer take an autocannon, maybe it can no longer take a plasma cannon. We just don't know right now what the weapon options are. And so you could go and buy one of those older Sentinel kits and suddenly it can't take the weapon that you've built it with. Now, a way around that, of course, is to magnetize it, if that's something you're open for, and that's what I would recommend. Either wait for the new kit, or if you're not confident with magnetizing stuff, if you're happy to magnetize, get the old kit and magnetize it up, and I think you should be absolutely fine. Now, the other one that I'd be careful of is the Commissar. And the reason for that is, with the new models that GW's been putting out, they've been giving them very fixed loadouts. Now, I wouldn't say worry about this in terms of like officers and stuff, because officers have always had loads of different weapon options in their kits. But the Commissar model that we've seen looks like a traditional new GW style model, which is, it's monopose, it's got limited options, it's coming with a power fist and a bolt pistol, and you better like it that way, you fucking scrub. That's kind of the attitude it's got. So if you go out there now and start buying, building and converting Commissars, and then you suddenly can't use them anymore, you're going to feel a little bit disappointed when you're stuck with the loadout. You just can't use the tabletop. So those are the kits that I would recommend you could pick up before the new Codex and still be pretty confident that you'll be able to use them. Everything else, guys, I honestly wouldn't go near, and the reason for that is quite simple. We don't even know if they're going to be in the new Codex, and even if they are in the new Codex, we don't know what the optimum loadout might be. Right now, Bullgrims with Bullgrim molds are great, but you don't know if GW is going to do a whole 180 Uno reverse card, and suddenly all the grenade gauntlets are the better option, but you've built your ones with mauls. You're going to feel a little bit silly if you're then going to go and either rip the arms off, do some conversion work, or use ones that aren't with the optional loadout. So in terms of those other kits that you can buy, your artillery, your special units like that, I'd hold off on those, stick to the staples, stick to your infantry, stick to your main tanks and stuff like that, and you should be fine. Now that's it for today's video, but before we pop off, I'd just like to say that if you are thinking of getting some new models, be it Imperial Guard or another faction 40k, or maybe a whole new game system like Bot Action, then I'd really appreciate that if you could check out my affiliate link down in the description below, and it's an affiliate link for Element Games. Element Games is a UK stockist and they sell all sorts of models and kits and everything, and they're really good, and they sell stuff for between 10 and 25% off. If you use my link down in the description below, then not only will you get between 10 and 25% off, but I'll also get a little bit of a finder's fee for directing a customer their way. And don't worry, it doesn't cost you any more to use that link. If you use my link, it just means that I get a little bit of the profit that Element Game would normally have. It's just their way of saying thank you to me for directing a customer their way. And it's a win-win-win. Element Games gets a new customer, I get a little bit of a finder's fee, and you guys get between 10 and 25% off your models. Now, also, when you get to the end of buying your models through Element Games, they'll have a little referral code that you can put in. And if you use the one that's for my channel, which is Tim3921, then not only will you get your normal amount of money off that you've got, from buying from Element Games, but you'll also earn double store credit, which means that actually very quickly you're going to find that you make a lot of savings using Element Games. And that referral code is just a nice little perk they've given for anyone that uses my link. So hopefully you guys will find that helpful, and it's a great way for you to support the channel and get the models you were going to be getting anyway. But that's all for today's video. If you've enjoyed it, please consider giving it a like and subscribe. If you want to go the extra mile and support the channel and see more content like this, then please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter. And I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member, everyone that has become a Patreon supporter. All of you guys are absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. That's all for today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video. And of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.